Nancy, our main girl. 9, also a good episode. Once again, I cried because this show is emotional.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, what a heavy episode.
This episode, I wasn't expecting it to be like a one-off
Mm,
or like it more so than any of the other episodes. It separates itself from the main story. Like we took a
Mhm.
break from investigating Tiffany's murder, Lucy's murder, or anything. And I- at first, I didn't know what to think of it or how to feel about it. I enjoyed taking that ride, and I was like, I think I was overthinking while I was watching. I was like, how does this play into everything? And I was like, oh, it doesn't. It's just character development for Nancy pretty much, which I
much
enjoyed
needed.
seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was much needed. Well, much needed answers besides,
Mhm.
that she has a wall. I was not expecting to get so much about her mom and her relationship with her mom, and then the reason behind why Nancy puts a wall up. I mean, some of that is her, but also finding out that some of it is a supernatural incident that she had repressed uh, was just honestly masterful storytelling. I think every time like we watch a new episode of Nancy, I just keep asking myself, why wasn't I watching?
Yeah.
What a mood. No, the thing I liked about this the most was that it set up her father's relationship with her. It
Mhm.
really highlighted the flaws of it, and it highlighted also the flaws of how Nancy's had to deal with the situation from both the father's view and her view, because it was really interesting when it reached a point towards the end and she was like, no, I forgot this information because Simon made me forget. And that was really getting to her. But the father was like, no, you forgot this information because you were traumatized. And I think that was an excellent way of getting both of that, their internal conflict that really kind of has been preventing them from moving past that. It really highlighted that and shone a spotlight on it. Because I'm not saying he doesn't believe in the supernatural, but he really wanted her to approach it from a view the world in a real way kind of way. But on the other
Mhm.
hand, she couldn't accept the fact that maybe she was traumatized by the experience.
I had a really fleeting and kind of dark thought in during the scene where she and her father read the note that her mom left her with the map to heaven, which was an amazing scene.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I will probably praise Kennedy's acting in every episode that we talk about, but she was so present watching Scott Wolf talk. I was blown
Mhm.
away. Beside the point, but getting back to what I was saying, when they're talking about the map to heaven, I had this thought because they did that flashback, and the mom was like, oh, you'll come and find me and we'll be reunited, or paraphrasing. And I was like, is this how the series is going to end? Is Nancy going to die and she's going to be reunited with
Oh,
her
wow.
mom? I told you it was a really dark thought. I was like, I don't want it to happen, but I was like, is this foreshadowing? I'm sorry. I got a little heated right there. But I also was like, is there going to be an episode in the future where this comes back into play, where like she has like a death scare and like she's reunited with her mom, but she comes back to life and she has additional closure that she reunited with her mom. I don't know. That scene was very impactful. And I was like, this feels like it's going to be important later, as important as it is to Nancy in this moment. I don't know. That was just maybe I'm looking too far into it, but that scene, I was like, I was thinking a lot.
I don't think you're looking too far into it. I think because these writers are so smart about the how they present different like objects and story elements into the show, it was very specific that it was the northeast corner of heaven.
Right? Like I was like, this has to be something that is referenced again somehow. I don't want Nancy to die. Like hashtag protect Nancy, but it would be a really, I guess, strangely beautiful callback
Mhm.
if they ever did do that. I don't know. Anyway, let's move past it. I don't want to think about Nancy dying.
But I will say a little bit in the scene though, because that's where it got me because of how beautiful that description was in the letter and the reason behind it about that being her like the her first health scare and that like how her mom handled that and how she told her child. And I was just like, y'all write such beautiful stories. I'm over here like crying because like it was Scott Wolf and Kennedy McMahon's acting too. on top of that beautiful storytelling that just really sold it. And it reminded me of oh, I don't remember her mom's best friend who is now dating her father's. I don't remember her name, but it was interesting that she came back in this episode after she kept looking at their photo, the same photo that's in his office and the photo that's in Nancy's. And I didn't realize it was going to end the way that it did, that she was going to take the journal information and get him arrested. Yeah. But I thought she was coming to the idea that, like, yes, girl, you really got in a relationship with your best friend's man. And though she has passed, you have to contend with that bond and what it means for those two and how you fit into it. It's very different. I thought that's where we were going. That's not where we went.
Yeah, I want to, like, what are the legalities of snooping into a journal when, like, where's your search warrant?
It was open on the bed. That's what they were clearing up, like, in the storyline. And she was allowed in the house. That's why.
I'm still not on board. But I mean, I don't believe Carson. Oh, no. But I just didn't want it for Nancy. It just felt like an invasion of privacy. But also, Nancy, once again, cover your tracks. Why are you leaving your journal out open on the bed?
She was doing so well, and then the streak is broken.
Oh, Nancy, love you so much, but you get on my nerves.
But I think it was also heart-wrenching, though, because it happens after she's finally vulnerable. And then when she was vulnerable, this is what happened.
She's like, no, I don't want this to be the truth as much as I was looking into it. I was like, she was so heartbroken. I felt for her in that scene.
And Drew wouldn't explain. Not Drew, Carson. Carson wouldn't explain.
Well, he's a lawyer. He knows he can't say anything, but his silence spoke pretty loudly for him.
And her heartbreak did too. I felt that. I do love, though, that I did get a little Jewishm moment. Nick once again tried and she shut it down. Though I love how she was like, I'm fine. But I was like, girl, you have tears in your eyes. Well, as he's talking to you, you're clearly not fine. But he calls her dad, because he knows that she needs someone, and she's irritated by it. And I was like, you know what? He was looking out for you. Even though y'all are not together, he does still care a lot about you. And it was great that he sent your father.
Yeah, I feel like this episode, when it started, I was like, is she really doing this again? In fact, you could see her putting up the walls and pushing him away. And it's like, well, you didn't want to be together. What's the point in caring about me now? And it's like when she is scorned, she puts up those walls and then keeps people out. So it was very fulfilling for the 40 minutes that followed to see that it was such like a character study on why she had become like that and what turned her into it, and the trauma she hadn't actually overcome because she had forgotten so much of it had happened to her. It was an incredible episode, and then that's why it was such a heart-wrenching ending moment that she finally put herself out there with the one person she's been very cold towards, and then he's taken away from her like that.
It made it hit so much harder that they spent all that time together in the episode, and she kind of spent all that time unpacking things. And oh my God, you're right. It's heart-wrenching watching that all slip out of her fingers so quickly.
I know. And like in comparison, everybody else kind of got what they wanted. Like Bess is testing her DNA with Owen, which I don't
I don't trust it.
You don't trust it?
I don't trust Owen. I don't trust it. He agreed too quickly. He knows what he's doing. I'm hoping that Bess is protected somehow, because it just doesn't seem like a good situation.
No, but they were very sweet. And that's why when she turns around to grab the kit and he makes a face, I was like, dang it, Owen, I liked you too. It seemed like she was gonna have a nice cousin. And then it makes sense that he would want to test the DNA separately if she was, playing him. But she's so innocent and cute and just happy to have potential family. And
I know. I wish she had her own things to deal with, but I wish George was present. I wish she had somebody with her in that scene to because she sees the best in people, I think, Bess. And she was seeing what she wanted to see with Owen. Like, she was like, oh, cool, we're going to do this. We're going to find out about my past. Because he's thinking, oh, she's going to take us for millions. And she's thinking, I just want to know more about my family. So I just wish George was there to be like, you trust this dude? Because she would be the one to poke holes in it. But George was a little busy.
She was. Poor Ted. Well, Ted was fine actually. Ted was just hanging out in the shop, like nothing was going on. But George was losing her mind, and understandably, like I really felt for her on the phone, and she's yelling at the person who's giving her the description of, I think it was a 25-year-old man or something.
That was really funny. But we don't have a Nace ship watch, but the ship watch for George and Nick, I don't know what their ship name is. I think the sails are up and we're moving because
Yeah.
Nancy's narration at the end says new beginnings, and it cuts to Nick and George looking at each other.
Yes, and then there's before that, when she thanked him and hugged him, which is like something that Nancy just did not do in their relationship. And he got to be with George the entire time looking for Ted. Like there was a togetherness that he just did not have with Nancy. That you could see upon that hug that he like basically like snuggled into, how much he needed that. And George clearly likes him. Those looks were something. I'm not sure if Nick is all the way there yet, but she definitely seems to be.
There's some sparks.
I'm interested to see where that goes, especially because she has the gratitude of him helping her find Ted.
Did you guys think when Nancy gets the phone call, I thought they were calling her to tell her that they had found Ted, but it was about Ace waking up. I was like, did they not? Are we just going to assume that she knows that they found
that was weird.
Ted? I was like, there's more information to share with Nancy in this phone call, but she was very happy that Ace was awake. I mean, understandably, but I was trying not to read too far into her facial expressions about how she felt about Ace.
No, I get you though, because when George didn't want to admit that she was worried about Ace, it's funny that it's Nancy that tells her, like, you should be worried because, it's fine to be. I was like, not Nancy saying it's fine to be worried. And this is particularly about Ace, but okay.
Character growth.
Yes. I really loved this episode though. And how like it spins back to her first case. And the spirit's name is Simon for some reason. I have no idea if that is something in folklore, but
I was barely following along with like with that whole thing. I was like, you know what? It feels less important to understand what's happening with like this whole situation than it is to understand how this affects the character. So I was really trying to cling on to that instead of like trying to put the puzzle pieces together for that. I was like, I'll just let them do it and I'll sit here and watch the vulnerability and everything unfold.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that's really good about the show, and I know I mentioned it before, is that there's so much story to pull from that even when they do a standalone episode that's removed from most of the story, it's still related to something else. This didn't feel like filler by any means. Of course, we knew about this case from the very first episode when Nancy mentioned that she solved her first case when she was 12, and it alluded to that and showed clips from it. We saw some of them same clips in the episode we just watched. But the thing is, it always feels like there's story to pull from, and it's still telling the main story. There's just so many layers to it. So yes, we didn't do the Lucy aspect of it, and we didn't do the Tiffany aspect of it, but we still did an aspect of it that ended up possibly being the richest exploration of Nancy as a character yet. And like, what an episode it was.
For sure. Once again, excellent storytelling, even with the cuts that they were doing where they kept retelling the same story about what happened when she was 12. But gave you as she learned new information, you learned new information. I gasped when she fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
Because I thought she had been running.
It was very cleverly shot that you only saw the foot the first time it showed it, and then you saw the whole information.
I think what we keep saying is Nancy Drew is smart. It's like quite possibly the smartest show on CW. Just the way that they do their storytelling is just like peak storytelling.
Feels like a real mystery.
It does. And I cannot wait for episode 10, that means we're almost over. Do you guys know whether or not season 1 has 10 episodes or no, it's 13?
I think it's 16 or 18.
Oh, okay.
Longer.
And then 2 and 3 are 13.
Oh, I wonder why they cut it down. Okay.
I think season 1, it happened like the end of the season was like pandemic starting. So I think that's why it didn't get 22 and then the other 2 at 13.
Okay. Well, then we are still on this ride, and I cannot wait to learn more about what's happening in this season.